ready for the truth?
Bring it on!
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth?
I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Here comes the truth.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Glad you're here, right here on the AFR Talk Network. So, the royal couple has a son. I wanted to open tonight's Nothing But Truth proudly on AFR Talk. Happy Tuesday to you. With an observation of the interest that so many people have in the royal newborn. And I was just thinking about how we're all royalty in God's eyes. And how we're made in his image. And how many of those who are or were on pins and needles and still are for the naming, I know, of those people feel that way toward every life. How many are pro-life? Because as he knew us in our womb, our mother's womb, thank you, I would think that God, the Father, is beyond any kind of excitement that we could possibly or interest we have in the royal couple's newborn. And this is not any way to criticize. It's to highlight the point that God knows you, he created you, he loves you, you're worth it, loves you right where you're at. And there's a purpose to your life. So you take all that excitement and you can't compare it to the extraordinary excitement God has for you. Now, we have a big show. I was out yesterday. I attended a memorial service for an extraordinary woman, and I'll talk about that a little later. But how blessed am I to be grafted into my best half's family, Catherine's family, an extraordinary family, and a wonderful woman who passed at nearly 103 years old. Amazing. I'll get to that later because we're really jammed, and we've got about 90 minutes, and as you know, it's the fastest 90 in talk television, talk radio, weba. So why don't we jump right to it with Representative Wolf talking about a subject that you all have brought up and we have been pursuing. Here's Representative Wolf speaking to Benghazi last week. He's going to speak every day until there is action. Roll it.
Benghazi survivors, whether the State Department, CIA, or private security contract employee, have testified publicly before Congress. Yesterday, I asked about whether there had been any intelligence failures in the vetting of the Libyan militias who abandoned the Americans at the consulate as the assault began. I also asked who provided the terrorists with a detailed understanding of the consulate property. Today, I return again to the Benghazi survivors and other career employees and contractors working for the CIA, Defense Department, and the State Department who were involved in the response or lack thereof to the Benghazi attacks. According to trusted sources that have contacted my office, many, if not all, of the survivors of the Benghazi attacks, along with others at the Department of Defense and CIA, have been asked or directed to sign additional non-disclosure agreements about their involvement in the Benghazi attacks.
We will follow up on those questions and some statements that were made by General Ham at the Aspen Security Conference with Buzz Jacobs. It will be this hour. He is the director, co-director of Benghazi 9/11. Buzz Jacobs. Update Benghazi. Big news last week with President Obama speaking to the issue of the Zimmerman trial and Trayvon Martin's death. And I'm really surprised by this. But when the president talks about race, the networks really give him some terrible treatment. I mean, the good news is they're not overboard with their praise, and they're certainly not overboard with their criticism. Okay, I've got to stop being sarcastic. Just roll it.
This was certainly extraordinary for a sitting president to make remarks like these. Could we call it historic?
It certainly was historic. I mean, you have their first African-American president weighing in on a case that took part in Florida. I think it elevated the Trayvon Martin story really to the annals of Dayglow top-tier history. In many ways, this president has been a constant grief counselor. If we flash back to Newtown or Tucson or Aurora, he always seems to be hand-holding. He was trying to explain to the rest of America how black people are seeing this particular case in Florida. So it was quite memorable.
Doug, this was really an historic speech in the sense that he also got very personal and said, this could have been me 35 years ago.
I do not share the opinion of the historian for Douglas Brinkley for CNN or the commentators, and there's a reason for it. But someone who can articulate that reason and review the speech at the bottom of the hour from an historian's perspective is our good friend, author, commentator, professor, Bruce Thornton will be with us. He had a wonderful article that I'll post up on the Facebook if you want to hop on over there before the interview. Bottom of the hour, Bruce Thornton will be with us. Now we shift to a big speech coming on the economy. Are you going to talk about Detroit's bankruptcy, Crane, and where it is and what? I'm going to get to that. But first, I thought this was quite refreshing, actually. Chuck Todd becomes Captain Obvious, NBC's and MSNBC's chief political White House correspondent commentator. Roll it.
Again, it's like deja pivot I have when it comes to the economy. But it seems that they really are signaling they are going to have a campaign approach to this fight with Congress when it comes to the debt ceiling, when it comes to sequestration 2.0, all of the decisions that are coming to a head in the fall. They're basically saying, hey, we're going to travel the country.
Well, they learned that lesson in 2011 during the debt ceiling debacle, which was playing out at this point 2 years ago. When that collapsed and turned into such a mess, they pivoted away, as we all know, and went into campaign mode in the fall. And as you remember, he put the Jobs Act forward right after Labor Day in 2011, mostly as a campaign effort. And I think what we're going to see is very similar. But I think that the real question is, what does he really have to say at this point? I mean, is he simply trying to do it for politics? Perhaps, but that begs the question of what do you do about a sticky unemployment rate, right, middle-class families that are struggling? I mean, there's a lot that he has to deal with.
You know what they're acknowledging, Margie, is they have nothing new to say. Because what are they saying? Hey, look back at this speech. He has said it all before. So he doesn't have anything new to say. He's just going to say it differently.
Why didn't you all recognize this in November 2012? He certainly was doing the same thing in 2010 and 2011 and 2012. In the year where annual growth was declining, and you had boondoggles like Solyndra. Where were you? But now Captain Obvious, right? Nothing really new to say. What is he going to do? I'll tell you what he's going to do. He's going to feign some sort of general conservative policy, but it will be something where conservatives who are just desperate to believe anything the president says about the economy, that he's learned the lessons of Keynesian economic failure. No, they're going to lock into that and say, see, he may do this. He's going to be, he's maybe changing. Maybe he's pivoting. Maybe he's learned. President Obama is not President Clinton. Keep that in mind. On the flip side, Detroit's bankruptcy, the truth, what caused it. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth proudly on AFR Talk.